A lot of people are concerned with Amazon, UPS, FedEx. I'm not really as concerned. I don't think they can give the service that we give.
I've always felt like we were treated like the stepchildren in supply chain. Like these courier guys, they're just moving envelopes.
They have to have it and we can't give it. We're not in it just for the fun of it. So we got to keep the margins.
There's a cost associated with that. If you can find those right relationship dynamics where it's a true partnership, we have trust in that, you can go a long way with that. It's when it's more transactional. It's a race to the bottom.
Difficult decisions that we have to make, and sometimes we can give, sometimes we have to negotiate, and then sometimes we just have to make a change. As an owner or president or a vice president, you got a big team underneath you. They need to know you got their back. They also need to know that there's expectation, how we treat our people, how they treat us. They give 110%. They work as hard as all of us and always have. But peace, I think, is what's made us successful. You can ask any employee, you can ask all my team members, to tell you they're treated right. They do know that they have to work and perform. This isn't an easy business. The biggest thing about Courier Express and the Messerly family is...
Want more game-changing insights from the best and last mile delivery? Stay locked in with Last to First. Follow us on social media for exclusive clips, behind-the-scene content, and expert tips. Subscribe to our podcast so you never miss a beat. Join the conversation. Send us some comments, drop in your questions, and become a part of the Last to First movement. Want to be a guest or know someone that should be? Hit us up and let's get them on the show. If you're interested in sponsorship opportunities, reach out to us. We'd love to work with you. Find us on social media with @LastToFirstPodcast. Send email to info@LastToFirstPodcast.com or go check out our website and let us know how we can support, help, and bring you better content going forward. Now back to Last to First.
This is Richard Whitlock. I'm president of CX Logistics, and you're watching the Last to First podcast.
In the delivery business, efficiency is everything. And that's where Dispatch Science gives you the edge. Their modern, cloud-based, AI-powered transportation management system optimizes routes, tracks orders in real time, and automates processes to save you time and money. If you're serious about scaling your business and staying ahead of your competition, then Dispatch Science is your next move. So visit dispatchscience.com today and give them the L2F discount code where you'll get 20% off your first month's invoice. Now back to Last to First. Welcome back to our next episode on the Last to First podcast. It's your place, the number one spot for you to learn about how this industry is evolving from last to now first and tomorrow's supply chain. Today is another treat. I say all the time, I know y'all probably get tired of me saying that, but it truly is. We're going to get a chance to talk to truly one of the leaders in the space, works with a number of courier companies around the country through their agent partnership. Also has a background as being an actual motor carrier and still operates in a portion of the country as a motor carrier. But really one of the big players in the space, and we're going to talk about how they evolve into what is now known. We're going to talk to the president of CX Logistics, which is a division of Courier Express. We got Richard Whitlock on the podcast with us today. Richard, welcome to Last to First.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to talk. I hit you up on LinkedIn a while ago, I think. I was like, hey, I'm working on this podcast. When I get it ready, I want to get you on there, so I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. We actually talked about it in Marietta, too, back when we did the CLDA event there in our building.
Yep, so glad to have you on.
It. Yep. Thank you.
So let's just talk about the structure. I mentioned in the intro, CX Logistics is a division of Courier Express. You're the president of CX Logistics.
Correct.
There's a separate president for Courier Express. But
right.
For the audience to understand the relationship between the two, describe the structure of the entities. What does each one do today?
Sure. So Courier Express has been in business since '85, and the Messerlys, Bill Messerly, unfortunately, he passed 2 years ago, January 2023, but an amazing man. And he just, he brought up his two sons in this business, Jim and Jack Messerly, and I owe it all to get emotional, but I owe everything to those guys. But the vision that he had, we far surpassed that, but he just had these visions of growth. And it started out as a on-call courier service with some schedule work, small. When I say small, 35 drivers, I think, when I came on in 93. They bought it in 90. And then as the growth came and we started moving the courier services and the distribution model hit, we now have 31 brick and mortars in the Southeast. But then there was the opportunity to go outside, right? And around '06, they decided, we'll get some brick and mortars with some office supplies. And they went up into Indiana, Ohio, over into Pennsylvania, and it just wasn't trying to manage brick and mortar that far away. Then the opportunity came up to have a 3PL logistics, and it became a much better idea to not have that brick and mortar. That's the way it started in '06. It was called Courier Express US. And then we got to thinking about it. It's like, we're really not a courier, we're a division of it, so we'll keep that. So the CX Logistics came in, and now we've branded that to CX Logistics, CX Direct, which is the distribution and courier model, and then the CX Freight. So we do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, no. So describe the size of CX Logistics. I mentioned in the intro, you got 60 agents across the country. So Courier Express is still the operating entity directly with the drivers in the southeastern portion of the country. But CX is your true 3PL, one of the probably the biggest in the final mile space. One of the biggest players in that space. What type of customers do you work with? What type of verticals do you serve? What's the kind of magnitude? I get nervous and hit this mic. What's the magnitude of that business?
For the logistics side, it's pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
From the logistics side, it's pharmaceuticals, it's office products, truckload. We do a lot of truckload and interline line hauls, and was DDU, which is we I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole or not. It's pretty ugly, but we did a lot of mail bags.
Okay.
And then odds and ends. There's right now we're looking at potential white glove. We'll try it all. We do warehousing.
Okay.
So we've handled frozen perishable loads, flatbed loads. If the call comes in and we can find a carrier that'll do it, then we start working to bid with those carriers.
And I want to dig into that in a moment, because I think I want the audience to understand how it is, what's the process, what's entailed to work. Running a delivery business comes with risks, but being unprotected shouldn't be one of them. That's why many successful business owners trust CUI Agency for their insurance and risk management needs. For over 50 years, CUI has helped transportation companies understand their unique risk, learn how to reduce their costs, and protect what matters most: their business, their people, their assets. Specializing in commercial auto, hire and own, cargo, warehousing, and other liability policies, the CUI team tailors each solution to fit your needs, coverages, and risk. So no more last-minute quotes, and definitely don't leave your future to chance. Visit CUIagency.com, speak to one of our experienced producers, and take back control of your destiny. Now back to Last to First. With the CX Logistics, if you're out there, and it'd be good to get it from your perspective, because I've been on the other side. We actually did a lot of business with you guys. So we'll talk about how to be good partners and how to make that relationship work. But take me back to your origin, because you're now running CX Logistics, right? You've been in this industry 50 years, but it started back.
You had to say that, didn't you?
well, I think it's important to call out the wisdom when it's in the room.
Yeah.
But your journey started back in the early mid 70s when you first got into space. You've been in transportation all your life.
All my life.
What's your earliest memories of getting into this crazy world?
It started out doing summer jobs, delivering bread for, I called him uncle, but it was one of my dad's best friends. We lived in Tampa and he lived in Orlando, and he had Pepperidge Farm routes. So had a step van, and I was delivering bread, and I actually liked it. I was out on my own, meeting new people, just doing my thing. Yeah. And when I got off, it was getting up at 3:30 in the morning and having to hit the grocery stores. But that's how it started. I enjoyed that, but it just wasn't going to be, in my opinion, it wasn't going to be what I really needed long term. Graduated high school, never went to college. I tried it, I couldn't afford it. Mom and dad, mom stayed at home and dad did okay, but not to, I was working at that particular time. I'll back up. My dad got me a job from a security guard he knew that worked at Alderman Transport Line, and they were a frozen, perishable, and dry good LTL company in Tampa. And I enjoyed that too, working on the dock. It was midnight shift. It was hard, but there was just something about it. Never will forget, I got accepted to University of South Florida, and I was standing in line with still my best friend who lives in Austin now. And we were walking up, I looked at him, I said, "I'm going home." He goes, "What?" And I'm like, "I can't do this." I don't have the money. I can't work, and as hard as I'm working, I said, I'll see you. And all glory to God, because he's hit me in the head 3 or 4 times majorly, and that was the first one. And so I just stayed on the dock, unloading trucks, but I didn't want to stay put.
Yeah.
I was begging him, I want to do something else.
You're hungry for
I
more.
learned how to drive a tractor trailer. Don't tell anybody, but I was driving, of course it's okay now because it was the late 70s, but I was driving tractor trailer and didn't have a CDL. They were getting me to move loads around. So long story short, I got in the office and then things started moving, and then I found another job with a company called United States Consolidators and Intermodal Transportation. They were the largest piggyback shipper in the U.S. at the time. Moved my way up to regional ops manager. I was the youngest one they had at 21. And it just kept going from there.
Yeah.
Lost my job, massive layoff. My dad had moved up here from Tampa, my mom and dad, and he called me up and he goes, man, I know you're trying to, the economy was rough at the time. And he goes, I know you're trying to find a job. He goes, there's an ad in here from a company called Roll Time Courier here in Marietta. And he said, it's a driver's job. I had a little small pickup truck, and I said, I need it. Let's do it. I got back to the old Pepperidge Farm days, making deliveries. So I liked that. And then the story goes on. I moved up in by the 5th year, I became vice president. And if you want me to, I'll tell a quick story about the Messerlys. I met Bill Messerly and Jim Messerly in around 91 at the Georgia Motor Trucking Association. We used to go there, and we became friends. And it was funny because everything in the industry was tight-lipped. But I've always been, from my dad, I hate contracts, but you got to have them, handshake deals. That's the way he did his loans at the bank back then. And we became close, and he called me up one day, and he goes, look, Jim and I have got a couple of accounts, and they need a dock high truck, and I know you got a couple. He goes, would you do the deliveries for me and just bill me? So I don't want to lose the business. I'm not ready to go get a truck. And I'm like, sure. I promise you I won't back solicit. Never did. And that's what we do today. He was using me as his vendor in 91 or 92, 93.
Yeah.
And then the way I got here was just the guy I was working for, he just wasn't into the technology side, didn't want to grow. Courier Express was the same size as Roll Time. So, I'm like, yeah, sure. And I went from a vice president to a dispatcher. Took a pay cut. I just saw the vision. And all glory to God, he's do it.
Yeah.
And then 06 stepped away, had the opportunity to have some ownership in a similar logistics type business.
Okay.
Didn't work out, and I was there 3 years. But I tell you, I learned so much, and it was so good for me not to be away from Courier Express because I loved it, still do. But what I learned, right? I learned everything about dealing with bankers. I was vice president at the time, and the owner was sick, and I learned all aspects of how to deal with the P&L and all that. Then the story goes coming back.
I want to park here for a second because there's a couple things I think are good call outs here for the audience. Because one, just the variety of roles that you've had. You've worked from being on the dock, driving trucks, no CDL, sweeping trailers, all those experiences up to being a VP, and we'll come back to being a dispatcher. Those have shaped you and your role today and what you do as the president of a large player in the space. When you look for talent, when you're recruiting, right? Part of talk about the people side of the business. Do you look for people with those similar experiences? You mentioned you didn't go to college. We were talking about this earlier in another interview, how this is a blue collar industry, but you want people that are sharp, people that. Fast and reliable delivery isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. And that's why over 270 global brands trust Drop-Off with their deliveries. With real-time tracking, professional couriers, and flexible scheduling, Drop-Off ensures your shipments meet their critical destinations on time, every time, down to the minute. So whether you're in the healthcare, retail, or industrial sectors, or just need a logistics partner, Drop-Off has the experience, the delivery network, and the technology to propel your business in over 40+ cities. Visit dropoff.com, click on Talk to an Expert, and use the L2L discount code and get 10% off your first month's invoice. Now back to Last to First. Can be innovative and bring ingenuity to the table. What do you look for?
Let me say that depending on the position. If it's sales, I'm really looking for somebody that's got massive sales experience of some sort. For the other roles, it just depends. Like for engineering, it's going to be real important that they're Excel savvy, know how to build spreadsheets. Another thing too, it's a struggle for us, is if you get a regional ops manager, they need to know geography. So we're covering the whole entire country. Anthony Hollingsworth and Mark Maadeo. Anthony's my VP of Ops, and Mark is our senior engineer. And then we've got another engineer, Matthew Graham. He's 25. Great job. He's learning so quick, but you can talk to the other two, Anthony and Mark, and they've got photographic memories.
Yeah.
And it's so big when there's an issue or we've got to make a quick change within a region and a carrier goes out, knowing that network that you built and knowing how to piece that puzzle together. It's so huge. So it just depends on the position. But the one thing that we're proud of is there's 27 of us in the logistics side. Started out with 2 or 3, and everybody there knew somebody. I have not hired anybody off the streets. We have, and that's been huge.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to go, hey, this is my buddy Jason Burns. He's going to do you a great job, and I really don't know that. I'm just trying to do you a favor.
Yeah.
And we've had great success with that.
Yeah. No, awesome. And the second part, when we think about your story, is you were an employee, and you left to go pursue an ownership opportunity with another provider.
Yeah.
It didn't necessarily work out, and we can dig into that. But more importantly, what made you want to, jump into the opportunity with ownership? It didn't work out. So what, anything you learned from that experience, or what you would have evaluated differently? If there's someone in the audience that's thinking about, I want to be an owner in the space, what should they be thinking about in terms of making sure that's a good, best next step for them?
First off, the grass isn't always greener. So be careful. I think for me, it was an already established company, and to have that ownership, it was an S Corp. So to get distributions and the ability to, in my mind, make more money, not that I didn't think I could grow with Courier Express, but I was also, that they'll tell you I was in the wrong position, right? I was a VP, but I didn't know distribution, and it was kicking my tail.
Yeah.
And sleepless nights. So it was a lot of what the business was doing to me, definitely not the company. The great guys, and it was a tough decision to make, but to be an owner, it was a gamble I was willing to take, and it didn't work out. And, fortunately, they weren't upset with me, and they brought me back and came back as a sales guy, right?
Yeah.
So they made a position for me, and I owe them for that. Again, another God, the way I look at it is God, I asked him, should I make this move several times? And I finally did it. And then 2/3 into it, I'm like, why did I do this? And what I didn't realize is he was molding me to be who I am today. And that's that. And I'll stop right here. The biggest thing about Courier Express and the Messerly family is culture. How we treat our people, how they treat us. They give 110%. They work as hard as all of us, and always have. But that piece, I think, is what's made us successful, is that culture goes from the top down. And you can ask any employee, you can ask all my team members, that they'll tell you they're treated, but they do know that they have to work and perform, because this isn't an easy business. So to tell somebody that, if you feel like you've got that in you, just, make sure it's, like I said, it's not easy. It's not an 8-hour job, especially if you're owner starting.
Yeah.
But you got to like it. Your dad's been there, your mom and dad, and you yourself. So you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, you got to like it. And I think you also mentioned that you start learning, the business, the other side of the business, the P&L side, the risk management side, all the things that I think help you be a great operator is when you understand every decision has a financial impact. And in an industry like ours where it's tight margins, there's not a lot of room for error. So the more you know about, the business and the management of the company and the roles and the P&L, when you make these decisions, operationally, you're much more informed. Yeah.
Very good point. And these are tight margins. I don't think people realize that. I think the customers out there that may hear this is like, we're not blowing the waters out when we get your
Do
business.
you think they know that? You talk to these shippers all the time. I know when I was working with you and everybody else, I want to do the work, but come on, man, I got to get a little bit more. And so what happens when you're talking to these CS customers? You're like, how do you help make the case on cost?
Talking to the customers.
Yeah.
I mean,
they listen?
We try to explain those, right?
Yeah.
The margins we're coming in at are very tight. Insurance is going through the roof. The buildings now, we got one building that went up 300%
On rent costs. Yeah.
We got 31 of them. So that's something that we've got to figure out right now, and that's the Courier Express side, right? I don't have the brick and mortar, but my partners do. So we understand that, but we have to get them to understand the cost of doing business in this environment which is ugly compared to 5 years ago, right? 4 years ago, it was rocking and rolling till COVID hit.
Yeah.
But then there was a lot going on with COVID, right? Because we had a lot of medical deliveries, running specimens. So we actually grew in that period. And whether that's good or
Managing independent contractors and gig workers is tough. Between onboarding, compliance, insurance, and payments, it's a lot to handle. And one mistake can put your entire business in jeopardy. That's where GigSafe comes in. Your all-in-one solution for managing independent contractors and gig workers, seamlessly and cost-effectively. Get drivers onboarded in days, not weeks. Automate compliance and save up to 40% on insurance. Visit gigsafe.com and give them the L2F discount code to get 10% off your first month's invoice. Now back to Last the First.
bad, it
Artificial
helped us.
growth, yeah,
it helped
sustained
us,
it.
though.
Yeah, I think it certainly helped. But man, I think it was a missed opportunity in a way. Meaning from the standpoint that for the first time, Last the First, I've always felt like we were treated like the stepchildren in supply chain. Like these courier guys, they're just moving envelopes, what is all this stuff? And then COVID happens and everyone's got to respect what you do. You're essential business now because everyone's at home and everybody's hitting the button to buy something. And thank God that many companies in our space continue to operate and provide these delivery services. Where I think we missed it at is that we didn't hold that value. For some reason, I'm talking about, from a compensation standpoint, where these services have now gone back, in my opinion, down to pre-COVID rates.
Yeah.
That are just they're not sustainable. All these other costs that are occurring in the business. I'm in insurance. I went from owning a business to insurance, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And there are a couple of things I can advise you that you can do, but the reality is it's going up. So
Everything's going up.
Everything's going up. It's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. I guess the question there for you, in your role in working with 60 agents across the country who are all pulling at you at some point, say, I need a little bit more here, a little bit more there. How do you manage that, and how do you stay successful?
We got to look at the area. We got to look at the customer. We got to look at our margins. I can't go back and ask for more money. It's just difficult decisions that we have to make, and sometimes we can give, sometimes we have to negotiate, and then sometimes we just have to make a change. If they have to have it and we can't give it because we're not a nonprofit, so we got to keep the margins. We have to keep the margins that the Messerly family and Courier Express Holdings expects us to keep. So we're not in it just for the fun of it.
Yeah, that's your job.
So it's a job, and it's just something we have to deal with. So we have some amazing partners, though, carriers. That I'll say, a lot of them are here, and that's one of the reasons I like to come. Is I like that face-to-face contact.
Absolutely.
Shake their hands and thank them for everything they've done.
Yeah. So I want to talk about a couple of things. We're talking off camera a little bit about SWOT analysis, looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities and threats. When you look at the industry in the final mile from from a threat standpoint, what things, potential areas of exposure where we could be threatened as an industry?
I thought about that, and again, I think a lot of people are concerned with Amazon, UPS, FedEx. I'm not really as concerned. I think you have to kind of look at the size that they have, and could they do what we do? Yeah, maybe, but I don't think they can give the service that we give. Technology is the biggest thing. I think, in my opinion, the biggest threat's the economy, because of what I'm seeing right now over the past year. I don't see it getting any better, or some carriers that maybe went with one vertical too much, right, and are going out of business. Can't keep up with the building costs and lease costs. Can't keep up with the insurance, and just got into the wrong deal. To me, that's the biggest threat, is losing, and then losing partners, vendor carriers, and then taking a look at, there's a lot of companies out there, venture capitalists, that are buying up smaller companies, right?
Yeah.
And some big ones. I mean, how long can they sustain that? I hope, some of them are friends of mine, so I hope it works out for them. But it's just something I don't see us doing.
Yeah. There's a natural attrition. Acquisition has played a big role in our industry. Kind of got a little quiet. I think you're going to see a resurgence of that here.
Oh, definitely.
Coming up pretty soon here, and I think already starting to see some signs of that happening. How do you find agents? How do you, from a CX standpoint, how do you find them, and then what makes a good agent versus someone that you would not want to necessarily partner with?
So CLDA is one way. So I love new carriers coming into the CLDA. We network with other carriers. That's the second biggest thing. ECA is another one. And, we don't just flip through phone books and flip through the internet. Sometimes some of the guys do if they got time. Like if we know we need somebody, let's say in Nebraska or Ohio, then we'll start looking through certain Google and things like that, trying to find them. But I think word of mouth and networking through this, the CLDA and the ECA has been the biggest for us.
Yeah. Do you, and good plug, shout out to CLDA, obviously ECA. Do you find that there's a higher level of service that these guys are bringing to the table because of their affiliate in these associations? They're learning and getting educated versus, I'm sure there's some guys you work with that are not a part of these groups too. Is there a difference in a CLDA, ECA member, someone that's making an investment in their business to get educated versus someone that may not be?
A lot of the times, yes, because that's always been my theory, right? Back before we got as big as we were, my thought process was, if they've got the money to spend, then they're probably pretty solid. But we try to find like-minded carriers, right? The vendor carriers that we look for, we want them to have the same culture we have.
All right.
And you can tell when you meet an owner, right? Or you meet one of their VPs or a salesperson, you can just kind of get a feel. And then we also ask around, network.
Yeah.
To me, culture and transparency and integrity.
Need to right size your business or scale it, and you want to avoid all the hassles and growing pains? Meet AdLink, your go-to partner for outsourced talent solutions, keeping your delivery operations running seamlessly and profitably. From customer service reps to dispatchers, including those difficult to staff nights and weekends, to back office admins, AdLink trains each logistics coordinator in your processes and native systems to get the job done right every time. And with top-tier security and compliance, your data is always protected. Optimize, scale, succeed. Go to adlink.com and use the L2F discount code and get $200 off your first month's invoice. Now back to Last and First.
Are the biggest things. For example, we want everybody to know that if Jason Burns is one of my partners in Louisiana, and we get a huge bid, and you're doing a bunch of work for us, and that bid in Louisiana comes across my desk, or Anthony's desk, we'll push it to the side if we know you're doing it. We're not going to try to take your work from you. And that's where the integrity side comes. And we hope that they do the same. I mean, they sign contracts and NDAs to not go after our business, and that's what we hope. But there have been 3PLs in the past that worked that way. They're not around anymore.
Yeah.
So to me, the integrity side is big. So you know that, and you'll learn that working through us, that, we are transparent and we do have integrity and we've got a great culture. So that's real big in my mind.
No, I've actually experienced that with you guys directly. So I remember that was I think it was a project we had, and it was going to like a regional national bid, and we talked about that. and you guys didn't step on our toes. And that goes a long way because, look, the reality is most carriers want to have direct relationships with their customers, right? There's this, theory that the 3PL is just taking a piece of the pie, and we got to work with these guys. The reality is, and I'm going to talk about this next. You guys play a valuable, integral role in bringing business, to our doorsteps, and there's a cost associated with that, and you guys have to manage that. And I think that if you can find those right relationship dynamics where it's a true partnership, we have trust in that, you can go a long way with that. Yep. It's when it's more transactional. It's a race to the bottom. And I feel like that's where you have issues. So the segue to that is, you talked before about Courier Express evolving to CX Logistics, and now CX Logistics represents shippers and customers all across the country. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? And who are some of these customers that you represent and work with today?
Well, so the biggest catapult, it somewhat started with Office Products account, and then it catapulted with a major pharmaceutical company that we had a piece of. Mm-hmm. We did a great job. And a lot of this is relationship building. They have to earn that trust, the customer does, because a 3PL, we hear it all the time. I don't like to use 3PLs. Mm-hmm. I don't want to use 3PLs. And the way we look at it is, would you rather go to one team or have to go to 15 to sometimes 40 different carriers across the country? It's, mm-hmm. your call. Yeah. So, yeah, there is a cost associated with it. But if we're doing our job and the word gets out, these guys do a great job, then that's how we grew. That's how it started. And it just started growing and growing. And it was people taking chances with, us and the sales and the company building relationship with certain larger shippers that tested the water and said, yeah, we'll try the 3PL model. And to me, communication is huge, right? I mean, huge. They want to know what's going on. They don't want to wait. And so between that and now technology, which we've got a huge, great IT team, they have done a phenomenal job building our own platform. So.
I was going to ask, so you have a proprietary platform?
We do.
Okay. Because one of my questions was, how do you manage this, right? So you're, from a tech standpoint, I'm assuming your agents, you need the ability to be able to get the information from your agents' drivers back to you seamlessly so you can pass that back to your client.
That's right.
How does that happen today?
Well, so, the ASN will come in from the client. We push it out to our partners. There's a lot that goes on.
What's the ASN? Just make sure everybody knows. What's the ASN for our audience?
Advanced Shippers Notification. So what it is, they'll send us the file. It's got all the information on the pieces and the address and all that. It comes into us. We push it out to our carrier partners. And in that, there's a lot that goes up front with our IT team because not everybody has the same platform. You got Accelerator out there, and several others, and the list goes on. So we'll use Accelerator as an example. If we've never dealt with this partner, then we've never dealt with Accelerator. There's a lot of conversation and communication that goes on. And then it goes into the driver scanners. They go out and scan, come back in, and they push that back out to us. And then we take all the data and build our, do Power BI is real big right now. So we're using Power BI for reports. And, that's why technology is big, because now we're having a lot of these shippers come back. I want to see reports, right? I want to see it in this format. So that's Power BI has really become big for us, not only for the customer side, but also for us internally on reports that the management team and up to executives get to see daily. Yeah.
You made an earlier comment about the institutional knowledge that an Anthony has compared to someone that's newer, just geographically, and being able to, move the puzzle pieces around pretty quickly when things happen. Is there you guys have a pretty expansive network now that you can sell on top of to clients, but from an operational standpoint, are you able to see that? Is there some visual tool where you guys can see all your routes on a map, kind of the network effect of what you've built?
Yes, in some cases, yes. Depending on the customer and what we've built, we're able to see that. We have app that our team has built, IT team, that's why we built it ourselves. So it's very similar to what you'll see with Accelerator and all that, where you can see the routes, you can see, we're able to take pictures at the door now. We're able to push that out. Also, GPS, the whole 9 yards. So it's been big. What we're really trying to do is build that, though, for us, because it's a little bit harder because of so many different platforms.
Yeah.
I think we'll get there, but that's huge.
Awesome. All right, so you give me a lot of good insights and facts on CX from a growth standpoint. So you came into the company in '93. Roughly how big was the company then to where it is now?
So in '93, I want to say I was the 8th or 9th employee. That's including Jim, Bill, and Jack.
Okay.
I want to say right after that, we did about $1 million in revenue right in '93.
Okay.
And I think we had about 35, 36 drivers.
Okay. So not a huge company, 93. Okay. So you left in 06,
06.
Came back 9, 10.
Yeah.
Okay. And you got involved in CX side. So now CX now has taken on, I mentioned earlier, is one of the dominant players in the 3PL space for Final Mile. What's the growth trajectory been for CX Logistics?
So from logistics, I would say around 2010, 2011, we had a couple of big accounts, but since then to where we are today, it's literally about 20 times bigger than we were then. The growth has been phenomenal.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. One question from are these two separate entities, or they're as a subsidiary? CX is a subsidiary of Courier Express?
correct.
Okay. So you're a broker on one side and a motor carrier on the other side.
Yeah.
All right, got it. That's an important note because it's funny, we were talking about this in a meeting earlier, a board meeting, is how do you define, is someone a shipper, they're a carrier? And because a lot of times, even QCS, we were a small company. We had both a broker's license and we're a motor carrier. We did both. You see that continue to be the way companies approach doing business, where you have a mixture of services offering being brokerage and actual carrier?
Yeah, I don't see it changing. I think you have to especially be a nationwide provider and provide service for all the different types of verticals that we do. So most definitely.
Yep. Fun fact, we were at a conference a few years ago, and our keynote speaker, we had a famous musician, a rock star, Sandy Gennaro, who popped up on stage, and the person that walked up to introduce him was Richard Whitlock. Talk about your relationship with Sandy. How did that come about, and what's that meant to you? Yeah.
Shows a lot of his character and his humbleness. I'm on LinkedIn, and every once in a while, let's stop. I'm a huge rock fan. Right?
Okay.
I still am at my age. I love hard rock, and everybody gives me a hard time about it at work. But I'll every once in a while see somebody, and I'll just connect with them.
Yeah.
Don't mess with them. I don't want to bug them and go, oh, hey, can I get your autograph? But long story short, I saw Sandy, and I'm like, man, I remember Sandy.
Yeah.
So I reached out to him. And Sandy, story goes, in 1980, he was with a band called Blackjack and had Michael Bolton was the lead singer, if you know who Michael Bolton was. And I saw my buddy and I would always go look who produced this, Ted Templeton or Jack Douglas, who is it? We knew everything about the works of the music, and like the producer, guy that loved the album and loved the drum, and Sandy was great on that. And then Sandy went on with Pat Travers, Joan Jett, and got his big push into stardom with Cyndi Lauper. So, and he's played with B.B. King, everybody. But long story short, I reached out and just connected. And about a week later, he goes, hey, Rich, thanks for connecting. If you got time, I'd like to learn about your business. And what I didn't know is he was doing keynote speaking, or he's trying to get into the keynote speaking. And I'm like, wow. So I gave him my number, my cell. He called me. Yeah. As nice as he could be. Give me a call anytime. Sure, I'm not going to bug him. We just started staying connected, and it hit me. CLDA, we always have the same type of keynote speaker in the industry, and we had been through the COVID thing. Yep. And I'm like, this would be a nice change. And so I got with Charlie Wolf, Mark Tuckman, got them and introduced them. We were doing Zooms from time to time and telling Sandy how to get. And I think there were like 5 people, and they weren't going to let anybody else in, but I think they let him in at the last minute. Interview with you guys on the board, and next thing you know, y'all picked him. I was tickled to death for him, and I think it was the biggest speaking event that he had. I know he's with Vistage now, and he is. I don't know if you follow him, but if you don't, do, because if anybody needs a keynote speaker, this guy is great. He brought his drums.
He did.
And he made it fun. He
put the show on.
He put a show on, and it's all about treating your people right. And he goes through Dave in the Doorway story. So he's got a book out.
Yeah. Okay.
So look up the book. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I was texting him the other night. He'll reach out to me. I'll reach out to him sometimes. He's a huge Yankee fan.
Okay.
So remember that. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Cool. Now, I thought it was a fascinating story, and I want to ask you on camera because I want to know more about it. And it's always cool when you can find different people who can inspire you in different ways in different walks of life.
Yeah, and with him to climb that chain as high as he did, and to be as humble as he is really big. And the fact that if I needed something or he needs something, and he's called me and I got him some drums. He was too busy to go back and forth to get his drums in, and he asked me a favor. I know a guy at work that is a drummer, and we got his drums to the center in Atlanta for him. So it's just helping each other out when you need it. So it's just great. He's a good guy.
So let's wrap up on this. From we were kind of talking about the personal side with your relationship with Sandy a little bit there. You've mentioned the culture and how important that's been that the message leads have formed from CX, some Courier Express and CX. When I was running QCS, I was forced to come in as a 20-year-old established business. When I came in, had a really solid culture. So part of it, I didn't really have to do much at the time. But I didn't realize until later in my career when we had lost a big piece of business and we had to reimagine the company, how much culture played into how we're going to get from losing 35, 40% of your revenue with one customer. And it really bought into this book called Traction, and it talks a lot about culture, and the leader has to be the one to set that culture. What would you say has been one of the key components of success for you and also the company? And how have you been able to differentiate yourself when you have to compete in the marketplace from competitors?
When it comes to culture?
Yeah.
To me, it is culture. There's a lot that goes into that, right? But the biggest thing is, as a owner or a president or a vice president, you got a big team underneath you, they need to know you got their back. But they also need to know that there's expectations that go with that. And I know from Courier Express, there's 500 employees. That's a lot. You got dock workers, drivers, the whole 9 yards. That doesn't include the ICs. For me, I've got 26 people below me, and they got to know that they're doing a good job, that they're welcome. And a lot of it goes, you got to treat your people right. Kind of go into Sandy. Sandy goes into that, and he's right. You got to treat your people right, have expectations, and also reward them. Pat them on the back. I sat in on our customer service team. I think there were 13 on the call, Zoom or Team, excuse me. And I do that from time to time, and I sat in with them, and I just told them how much I appreciate the job they did. We'd just gone through peak.
Yeah.
I know they were just killing it from getting that done, and it was stressful, but they all had smiles on their faces.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I need to see your face when I'm on the team call. And I went to each one of them and thanked them. And that goes, I think that goes a long way. And I know Anthony, and he does it with his group, Mark, all of them. They just really push that culture side. And I think it helps you get through the tough times if your team enjoys what they're doing and they know, look, it's a bump in the road. We'll get there. We've all had those bumps in the road.
Of course.
And you know how peak is.
Yeah. Peaks, we never did a whole lot of peak work, but I've had a taste of it. And it starts, a couple weeks before Thanksgiving?
Yeah. It depends on who it is. The one we had started at the 1st of November. With one customer, but usually it'll start about a week before. back during the old DDU FedEx days where you were shipping the containers. They don't do that anymore. It's literally on Black Friday and then the Cyber Monday. That's when it really hit.
What does your business do from a growth standpoint in peak season? How much does it volume and spike and grow?
For a particular customer, it doubled. Yeah, doubled in 2 months. The volume, if you annualize what they should do for that year, it actually, within that 2 months, they doubled.
Wow.
That particular one did.
Yeah. How do you find the capacity to manage that?
Took a lot of part-time help. It took a lot of part-time help. And most of it was customer service, because we're prepping our carrier partners on what it's going to be, when it's going to start, and they have to do the same thing with, obviously, the drivers.
Yeah.
We're doing most of the customer service, but that's where it hit us the biggest, was on the customer service side. So we had to really prep them up and get some seasonal part-time people in there.
Yeah. Let's wrap up with this last question. It's the future of Final Mile. This podcast is hopefully helping to educate people on the growth, but also this entire ecosystem of Final Mile, things that's happening from a technology standpoint, automation. Where do you see that going, and where do you see the role CX will play into the future?
I don't see it going away. I see it getting more stressful and more demanding. I think, I'll use Amazon as a prime example. I don't know how they're doing it and making money, but you can go online and it'll ask you if you got Prime and you're there at 8 o'clock in the morning. Do you want it today between 1 and 10 p.m.? And that's same day type courier work. But I really, in my heart, don't think there's overall long-term competition with that. I do think, though, that people get that in their mind, customers get that in their mind, and they want to see certain technology that they paid millions to get, ex-UPS, Amazon.
Yeah.
And, we don't have the resources to get that exact, let's say, app or type of notification, but we are working on several things with our IT department to at least get close to that.
Okay.
Because we think that's the future, the technology. Every time we talk to a lot of our major customers, it's all about technology.
Yeah.
And what can you do? Can we get this? And, sometimes you go back to our CIO and he'll just look at you cross-eyed. You really didn't ask me that. But, the pressure's on him, but they do a great job on that team.
In the industry, they'll call you a non-asset-based carrier, a broker. But the more I talk to people in the space, even people who are operators, it's more about technology.
Yeah, it is.
Like how much time do you spend in your role just focusing on that technology piece of it? Because I'm thinking my background is as being a carrier, right? And is it almost the shippers are kind of carrier agnostic? Do they really care about who the carrier is? Is it just about who can give me the data that I need back the fastest to please the customer?
There's a lot of time and thought process that I put into it, not near as much as obviously, because what I do is go and hear what I hear and go back to our IT, BI team and go, look, this is what they're asking, right? Personally, what we're doing is the logistics teams has biweekly luncheon meetings with their whole team, and we sit down and talk it out. What new startup do we have? What are our needs? When's it coming? When we win a new piece of business, they're the first ones we let know. So, hey, here's who we're picking. And so, what's their platform? To me, I'm constantly trying to think outside the box. I'm ignorant to technology, really. I thought it was great when I got my BlackBerry. So I'm trying to catch up most of the time. But long story short, there's a lot of thought process that goes into that with my whole team, right, from the management engineering level. And a lot of good communication. I think that communication and meetings with them and keeping them in touch and, what do you need from us? And they ask the same, what can we do? And they're building reports for us to help us manage our business better. So it's
awesome.
good.
Yeah, got it. Richard, thank you for being on the podcast. It's been really a pleasure to have you on here.
Always. Thank you.
Learned a lot from you over the years, and obviously I know the audience is going to pick up a lot of good things from this podcast. So continued success. Thanks for being a leader in the space and being on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. All right, so that's concludes the episode with Richard Whitlock, who is the president of CX Logistics, one of the top 3PLs in the final mile space. You can find him online. But this is Jason Burns with Last the First Podcast. Peace out.